Hey, good morning, everybody. So interest rate day, most likely nothing's going to happen. It doesn't mean the markets aren't going to dance around. Yesterday's dance was with inside day. Makes sense after a big wide range day. Things have to settle down. And you can see they're up here a little bit. And we're trying to make a short-term bottom here. Our internals got a little bit more extreme. So they do support at least some kind of a turn here. Internals give us guidance as to the probability of a short-term turning point, but obviously price is what we trade, not these internals. Now, you can see these kind of trending down. It's hooked up a little bit yesterday as there was a little bit of improvement. They can go lower. We just know that they're at the beginnings of an extreme here. As I always like to point out, the historical extreme is down here. But the bands adjust for different market environments, so they've done their job. And the markets started to becoming a bit more bearish back in July. Things began to shift. The breadth began to deteriorate. And there was, in retrospect, 2020 hindsight, a last gasp push up there to 45.50. And we all know what happened after that. So we can see if we can get a short-term turn. Maybe after this news is out of the way today, maybe that actually happens when an attempt to push up into this unfilled gap area. SPX, you got to make the decision. Things could fly around on whatever comes out of that chair's mouth. So you make your decision. You can go down to 42.75. There's premium there. I should be far enough away. And should you get a drop way down there, well, does it go all the way down to the intraday low, or does it stop at the closing low? Well, who knows? In any event, first of all, you've got the low from 2 days ago. You've got 4,300 as a whole number. And ultimately, if it keeps falling, it reaches a point of price support that buyers would show up at, considering the distance that they would have to travel prices down to. So it's a reasonable bet. There's news going to be coming that could move the markets. I didn't see anything interesting enough on the upside. I mean, all the premiums on the downside, which means, the fear is still there. The thought of it going down, and I believe rightly so. After a drop like this, you get stabilization and maybe a bounce, and then the next wave of selling typically is going to come in. So the thing to look for is, assuming we get that bounce, and you can see things are up here at the moment, how far do they bounce into here? The deeper it gets, the more this becomes a focal point of could be the low. Right? We just don't know yet. The shallower the retracement and the next turn that happens, the greater the probability of breaking down through the low. Everything's common sense when you just understand price patterns and their MTS concepts like retracements and relative strength and weakness and so on. So futures, you can see bouncing here a little bit. They dip down under the low there, and pushing back up. Really not a big deal. What's going on here so far? Just consolidating after the move. We had that move up yesterday morning, pre-market up to the pivot high, and that came. At least it didn't go all the way back down to the low. So showing a little bit of willingness of buyers to step up before it got all the way down to that support point. And so far acting pretty well. So maybe it comes back up here again. And you got a wide range bar kind of igniting from the middle of nowhere. As I said, they came in early and it consolidated, created some support, went up again, a red bar ignored, And it looked like a turn, was in the area of a topping tail. It didn't happen. So plenty of bullish price action here in the short term, suggesting to push up. And that is good for the idea of a put spread on SPX. It's moving further up to where, again, the distance to go back down to the level I mentioned on SPX, it's got to travel not only that far, it's got to go through these reference points that traders are going to be focused on as, oh, should I buy here? Should I buy there? And I'll mention again, the news comes out, those reference points can be like, if things were going down like a hot knife through butter. But the speed at which prices go down to a reference point have to be considered versus, hey, did it trend down there over the course of an hour, or did it get there in 5 minutes? More common sense. Tech, NASDAQ futures, we got the wide range bar, inside day, stabilization. That's all that's going on here so far as, a willingness to pick up some, buying here at support. Damage was done. Takes time to heal that damage. And, this isn't a pattern just yet to think that it's going to do anything of any great meaning. So stabilization, wide range bar, same kind of bullish price action. It's at this resistance area. And I'm just reading YouTube there. All right. So similar price action going on there. Now the Russell, again, they stepped up a little early. Some there, and that's a little bit of a better pattern intraday. Meaning, you had the wide range bar and it came down to an area of support, and then the wide range bar up and the consolidation. In any event, you got similar situation through markets where it came up to the pivot high, respective of, these instruments and their own. Buyers came in early. This one had a retest. It's coming up to the resistance. It's going sideways so far. So far, it's just technically kind of traders taking advantage of a short-term extreme move to the downside and backing and filling. The news will come out today. That'll be out of the way. One element of uncertainty that, could be blindsiding us. And, at the end of the day, it's always, well, how far does it retrace into the wide range bar? The deeper it retraces and closes into it, the more bullish that is. The more it stays down here in the lower half and goes back and forth, the greater the odds of pushing lower. All markets stop going down, Tony? Well, yes, for the moment. They stop going down, at the end of the day here, and they stabilized. But all they're doing here is, look at the hourly chart, it's just creating a whippy range for now. So stopping going down in, a moment doesn't mean it won't go down again. And it depends on how it stopped going down or how it got to the point of stop going down. So, here where it was at the top of the range and it stopped going down, right, after a double top, even though it's a wide range bar, we still have the thought of, well, unless it can go right back up here, odds are it's going back down again. So after it stops going down, after getting to the top of the range, that creates a better bias or belief that it could pop up from the bottom of that range. And similarly here, it made a new lower range high and went all the way back down to the bottom of the range. Now it stopped in the middle of nowhere, which we'd say, well, I'd like to see it go back down to the bottom of the range, because that's the point where it has the greatest probability of finding the most buyers, because that's where they've been showing up all year long. Well, to me, that makes sense, but we'll see. Right now, it's just whippy. It's erratic. It's, I'd say, somewhat unpredictable. Now we've got the Dow futures down here near this pivot low. So here, it stops, refuels the tank, drops again down to a significant point. Now, is it at a point where it won't go down anymore? Nobody knows. But at least the way it came down, like a measured move, and hitting this point, it at least suggests a short-term stability. And then, okay, it should be able to bounce up from here. So look, everything that we do is looking at what we call the weight of the evidence and saying, what's the likelihood of this making a turn here? Oh, that's pretty good. Look at the way it came down. It's at the support. All right, what's the likelihood of it going back up and making new all-time highs and blasting right through here in the next couple of days? That's not a very good bet to make. The longer it stabilizes here, can it get up to the breakdown area? Well, maybe it can do that. And as we go and look at the intraday timeframes, and we see, is that a constructive pattern to support an intraday move? Well, it's beginning to, but it's not all that convincing. Well, at least, the wide range bar, the similar price actions here that occurred overnight, wide range bar, the red bar ignored, the consolidation. The best relative long, probably. So to answer that, McGraw, and it seems a little counterintuitive, but the one that could have the best relative long is the one that fell the fastest and hardest, because that's the one that created the void. As we go through these, we see this led the way down, and it reached support. So yes, intraday pattern, not all that attractive. Things that are beaten down typically aren't very good breakout patterns. Buying pullbacks into support and saying, oh, will this hold? Well, that one came down, on this time frame, came straight down like a power move down. I don't think so. So maybe down here, if it was to fall sharply and we pick up some and say, okay, how far will it bounce? Now it's got this resistance. You better be nimble. All right. Now, the other thing it would do, say, okay, I want to focus on the Dow. Well, if I was to see a red bar ignored, especially a big one like that, and it comes back up and starts consolidating, my confidence level goes up, because now that pattern is confirming the belief of what's being created so far in the moment on these higher time frames. So understanding multiple time frames, bar by bar analysis, relative strength, right, these being stronger, and then looking at the weaker and saying this is the bigger void, and then we, on a smaller time frame, having a pattern that supports that bias, things are coming together. They're not quite together yet, and we'll see if they do. Bitcoin back up here again, ideally down here. So a stabilization, they bring it down here where the buyers were aggressive. Now that it came down hard, it's forming a little bottoming pattern here. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We need more information. Crude oil is holding up relatively well here so far. Buyers at minor support, converging moving averages, sideways here, and pretty wild and whippy there on the 5. So you could continue to get whipped around. I'm not going there. And this is a sell setup. It's in the bottom part here. It has been trending up. Now it's got a double top. So like we've discussed in the green room about turning points, we were talking about uptrends and pullbacks to the 50. Well, we just reversed that analysis. Well, this broke down, and now it's starting to create a topping pattern here to where it's rolling over. Well, let's see if it can actually break and then start picking up some steam, and you can trade it intraday from a smaller time frame. Or if it's from a swing time frame, you got to wait for things to develop further. Silver, we know, is down at support. It's bouncing up here. And so kind of in conflict with gold. I mean, just this having reached that support point, it looks like it could bounce up a little bit. Usually we like to see them moving in lockstep with each other. Transports. Couldn't get back up above that 200, but there's been some buying. Small tails there around 14,000. Bearish now on the weekly, having broken down. Wait and see. It says lower. It's right there in the area of that last pivot low. And so while the 200 is subjective, it is lined up with these pivots. It's closed underneath it. Couldn't bounce all that much. We'll see what it does today. Dan mentioned Fedex earlier today to me. I mean, it's just been grinding down. Just looks terrible. It's down here in these bottoming tail bars, bad earnings. Yeah, FedEx is going to hurt it. And wow, yeah, I had to scroll it back to really get a clear view of the picture there. But 236.7, yeah, transports that's going to do some damage. Yeah, and UPS McGraw saying. So yeah, that's down. The rails have been going down. It's just flip-flopping around here. Maybe that's been beaten down enough to stabilize. So look, the markets are not out of the woods yet by far. Technical bounces going on here, news coming out. Swing setups, not really there yet. Intraday trades, be nimble. Keep the powder dry, cash is a position. Let the news pass by, and high probability opportunities will reemerge. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, I don't know what just happened in the last 10 minutes, but wow, Qs and spiders look fantastic, as you said, for a day trade bullish bias, and then just had a little swan dive there. Look at, I mean, this is the only alarm of mine just went off. And I looked up at my fangs, and I'm like, man, what just happened to Facebook? I know, Jim, that's what I'm talking about. My alarm just went off. And McGraw, I give you credit. McGraw yesterday was saying, I don't like that 345. Well, this is total news. I mean, pre-market, it looked totally fine. We have a 345 put spread, and I don't see the other things falling at all. But the Qs and the spiders and the diamonds and IWM did pre-market, so I don't know, something spooked at pre-market. But our other opens, everything looks fine. So if you have any questions, just ask. Let's go through a bunch of things I'm watching here. I gave you a big list of possible put spreads. And again, I remember somebody asking me in the room the other day, why do you have so many bullish setups if we're bearish? And we had a long talk about that. I won't get into it now, but a couple of things are we're pattern traders. And if that's more of what I'm saying, it is what it is. Number two, they're only going to trigger if they're strong. And number three, sure, I'd love to short. We'll trade. I did give 3 bearish patterns there. In fact, let's start with those. Oh, I posted this. I sent it to Telegram. Let me give it to you all. So AI, bear 1, 2, 3, IDT, bear 1, 2, 3, Max, bear 1, 2, 3, and a death trend. So there are 3 bearish ones right there. Let me continue. Robert's asking about GIS, $60. Yeah, Yeah, that's on the gap list. I've had earnings. So, it's a two-step process. It's a compelling gap with a price void, so it meets prong number one. Prong number two is, let's see what it does. It's getting extended pre-market. Decision. I love them. I love gap trades when the pre-market is also acting very bullish. I'm going to start down here. So this looks like a ADR, SSL, way it gaps every day. But look what jumped out at me. The monthly little buy setup there. So now it's gapping up. It's gapping up a lot, but that's a put spread idea. This Marin McGraw text, and this had a bullish close. Look, that's a beautiful breakout, beautiful end of day base. And McGraw told me somebody bought thousands and thousands of $7.50 calls. And the SEC needs to investigate that, because that's just, that's not luck. That's my cynicism over Wall Street and traders again. But I would say there's 99% evidence that whoever did that had inside information. But Ater has been a little Wall Street bet toy. No great pattern though on the daily up 3 bars, but if it maybe 30-minute high, could be a day trade to 16 bucks. Greg, I know I think you were watching Workhorse as a potential bottoming pattern, and that's ugly right there. Something's wrong with Workhorse. I think I heard this morning that what happened with Disney was they said their subscriber growth of whatever channel thing they sell was slowing down, but no pattern there. Valley I posted, climactic buy setup, nice gap, and I just gave a limit of the put spread. We either get it or we don't. WIMI, Workhorse, thanks to you. WIMI's is ugly. That's a damaged stock, but this morning's a something bar. We'll come back to you in 30 minutes. Saba, 59 bucks. This is a bio, but it's a nice bottoming pattern. If you're so inclined, and can sell something out of the money. The reason I'm looking at Triple D is my local newspaper here in Fort Lauderdale had a beautiful article today on 3D printing houses. And there's one up in Tallahassee that it's a kind of a study project, and they make these things less than 3 weeks. A 3-bedroom house, and they said that they're built better, and they don't have wood in them, so they don't rot. They can withstand the storms, and so on and so forth. And they're cheap, obviously cheaper. So, hey, McGraw, you're a good fundamental guy. I would love to the company that I mentioned is private, but I love that technology and love that idea for building cheaper houses with less maintenance and less time. Are you kidding me? Sophie gap in 16 bucks. This would be a very nice 30-minute high trade. Now see how this one's going sideways, so it's rested, as opposed to just vertical move up pre-market. I'm gonna put that in the window. Low G, 99 bucks. It's a big gap, but no pattern. We'll come back. We have a put spread on RCL, but if the market gets in rally mode and this can close, have a closing breakout, let's look at all these tails. 1, 2, 3, 4 got whacked, but that it's still holding beautifully. Manu here had earnings the other day. That's a put spread idea if there's any juice. Myrna, yesterday's high, put spread idea. These are all just for Friday. SFIX had earnings, 40 bucks, gap in the resistance. But let's keep an eye on that. I have it here in the middle window. Adobe had a disappointing earnings, 624. Yeah, that's an ugly gap, but I have no idea what to do with that. Fedex, that's a bearish pre-market. Wow. You know, whenever you have to go to a bigger time frame, you know you're dealing with a big gap. That's a major top. Well, let me rephrase that. It's a major trading range, but you know, this was an amazing uptrend. 235. Well, it's capping on this prior low. If buyers show up and it could take out a 30-minute high, that could be a 2 DTE put spread. But there's a lot of room for this to fall weekly, and that's a nasty downturn on the daily. Always look at the cousin. Yeah. Yeah, we were saying UPS weekly. Yeah, I think I said yesterday that 180 was the first stop and 175 the next stop. Amid, nice something bar yesterday, but now it's gaps excessive. Lulu, Greg talked about in coaching last night. Kind of a bull flag here. If you put a flag pole right in the gap, this is a bull flag. It's a 30-degree counter trend bullish consolidation with a bullish weekly. So that looks good. Wow, tick almost 1,400. My gosh, Greg. Wow. Well, I guess that is a big gap from yesterday's close. But the way we were selling off pre-market, that surprises me. The tick's that big. Wow.
Anyway, it's a mess.
Jacopo, CCXI. It's definitely worth watching. It's not bullish enough really for me to kind of do anything right now or ahead of the FOMC, but it's worth watching. Look at, GIS we looked at, see that. So whoever asked me, I said part 1, it was a bullish gap. Part 2, I don't like what it just did. Just got slammed at the open. Now, could it repair itself and take out the day's high? Of course it could, but then we're going to have a big old bottoming tail. It shouldn't have done that. Cliff Clavin, same sector as Valley.